Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Do You Belong podcast. I talk about life, philosophy, and news between friends who are trying to figure out the age-old question of where do I belong. How you doing? I'm Oscar Wang, and with me today we have Medrick and our very special guest Tony. In today's episode, we go back to the basics and explore the aspects that inspire this podcast. We delve into our personal journeys with identity and belonging in a foreign environment, reflecting on our struggles and transformations. Stay tuned as we unravel these stories with you today. Let's get into it. Alright, welcome back, everyone. We had a bit of trouble doing this intro as per usual due to technical difficulties with Medrick's face.
Yeah, just me. Yeah.
My name is Oscar Wang, and today we have Medrick and our very
Yo.
special guest Tony, who was here last week as well. But yeah, how are you? How is everybody doing? I know I asked this question last time already, which was 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, 5 minutes ago.
But
yeah,
how are you
I have
guys
a
doing?
very distracting face. Yeah. Very good, very good.
Same,
How about-
likewise. Thank you for having me again.
Yeah, of
How
course.
about you, Oscar? How are you
Uh,
doing, man?
I'm doing great as always. You know what
Glad
always
to
shocks
hear.
me? You know what always shocks me? That when people ask you
shocks
how
you?
are you doing, they don't expect you to say like the truth, you know? It's always like, how are you doing? Good. Okay, they leave, you know? They don't even look at you. They don't even expect an answer.
That's interesting because I actually use sometimes, even though it's usually people automatically say good. I sometimes actually pause and think about it and answer accurately. So sometimes I
Yeah,
actually don't
yeah.
even say good. Sometimes I can say okay-ish or not so good.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know, like
Yeah, some
yeah.
people take it like so real, and I don't think that's bad. I think it makes it interesting and less common of an answer to actually be really really honest.
That's what I
I
do
mean,
usually. Like if somebody asks me how are you doing and if I feel
depends with who.
yeah, true, true.
Because if you just met like your boss the first time, and he's like, "How are you doing?" I'm like, "Well, I crashed my car," and you go like full on, like
So my
depressed or
wife left
something.
me, and my
Yeah.
kids hate me.
Okay, okay. Jesus.
You know, yeah.
Yeah.
Like I understand that, but then why ask the question at all? You know, it has
That-
become like a formality in a way.
But that's so funny. It
I
took us
mean,
like
indeed, it's
five
still
seconds.
like yeah. It's my bad. Sorry. Please continue.
It's okay,
It's okay.
Tori.
It's okay.
No, it took us like 5 seconds to become like full philosopher mode. Like we asked the question, "How are you?" and like, so let's talk about the meaning of "How are you?" like right away.
No, but
Just
for me,
I
it's
think
just a
it's
rant.
interesting.
For me, it's just a
No,
rant
no, I
because
think it's nice. I think it's nice.
I don't know if it's nice. To be honest, like I think in Western countries, it's very often when they ask the question, "How are you?" They it's just like it just
Mm,
comes right after hi or hey or good morning or whatever. It's
true,
not
true.
even like they don't even care how are you doing, you know? So I
Yeah,
don't like this because like how are you doing is actually such a simple question, but at the same time such a fundamental question that makes a lot of people, you know, really you can get to know how a person is actually doing, you know? How else do you want to ask them than how are you doing? You know? But then when people make it such a formality, it loses all meaning.
Not really. So I would say that the fact that we like in the culture it's ingrained and become more or less a habit of asking how are you after greetings. I believe there's also a good side. For example, even though the person that asked how are you didn't like just ask due to formality and habit and not because the person genuinely is interested in how the other person is feeling, it's still I would say a good thing because the other person might be like in not such a good shape, and then this question just open up a conversation topic. It gives the opportunity for the other person to maybe vent out his or her frustration and
But
share to the other person their maybe not so good days and so on.
but that's when it's ideal, right? But in Western countries, it's not like that. If somebody asks you how are you doing, you say good, no matter what it is. You say good no
or I'm
matter how you
alright.
feel.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You say, "Oh, I'm alright. I'm good," you know? nobody expects you to actually answer. And even if you say bad, they're like, okay, whatever, fuck you, you know. Okay, no,
I had
not.
I
Well,
had
no, no.
yeah.
When you say something like oh, it's not so good or something, they will actually then like trigger and went out from the autopilot answer, and they'll
Yeah,
like
yeah.
start asking, oh, what's up, or like they'll
But
be a bit more caring.
let me ask
Uh,
you, like somebody that you didn't know very closely, like when did you actually hear when you asked somebody how are you that they said not very good or
Actually,
anything other than good?
yeah, in Europe, at least where we know in the Baltics and all, it's actually quite often where
Yeah, exactly.
what you said, they're gonna be really honest. Like for example, I would ask my friend, how are you doing? And he goes, like I'm not good. Or I ask even like somebody like I'm not very close to, and they were like I'm not very good because that. And I'm like, okay, I didn't expect that, but let's talk
Yeah.
about it. And I'm fine with it. But it's not something I expect because again of my Western culture. But they really go in detail. It's not like a how are you? It's not like a simple thing. It's like how are you like actually doing in life? What's
Yeah.
up with you? It's a very deep question where they spend like a few minutes talking about it, and I think it's nice. It's no. I think it's actually making it
Exactly.
much
Yeah.
more
That's
interesting.
I think that's the whole point of the question. It's simple yet so eye-opening, you know?
Mm.
You
Uh,
get to know
a,
the
a
person.
change a change of quick twist in this because you made me curious about chat GPT. You said that you can actually like use it to form questions, and I'm actually really curious on trying to form questions now and us trying to answer it. And I think it would be nice to actually use this podcast to actually test chat GPT when it comes to philosophy. I don't know if you guys are down for that, but I was
uh,
really really curious on
so
trying that.
I did some experiment with the popular Chat GPT, which used the GPT. Right now, I believe it's used the GPT 3.5 models. It's OpenAI did give some limitation to certain topics. So if you answer any, let's say, controversial, political, or any questions that are like in the gray area, it will usually reply in a very politic reply is what I call it. It basically say like it either doesn't
As an
have
AI
the
model.
it usually just it you would say that they are not like they are they are just a model and they cannot answer the question, so basically they refuse to answer it, or they answer in the middle of the fence way,
No,
so
no,
they
we're
don't pick
asking
a
it.
side.
We're answering the question. The chat GPT is forming the questions.
Oh, I mean, we can go for that as well, but it's gonna be the same. I mean, yeah, we
No,
can go
no,
for that.
I mean, we could find out, if you guys are down. Huh?
Yeah,
I mean, sure.
we could definitely do that. But let me go let me get through because we're already kind of sidetracking here.
I mean,
Let
we always are.
let
So,
me go through like some of the um not the purpose, the the exciting things that I
topics.
wanted to talk about
Yeah, yeah, okay,
today.
yeah, okay, okay. Oh, okay, okay, yeah, sure, sure, sure.
Especially now that we have Tony here. It's you know growing up. I think Tony, you growing up in a similar cultural circumstance as me or Meteoric. I kind of wanted to bring you on this podcast to talk about some of the fundamental concepts and the reasons we started this podcast, which was to talk about belonging and what does belonging mean to us and how this concept actually changes throughout our life. And we talk about it, we bring it up quite often, every few weeks, and every time we ask ourselves this question, it changes a little bit. So I want to explore this a little bit with you today, uh, and maybe we can start with the very simple question of what does belonging mean to you.
Well, belonging that can be interpreted, I would say, in a lot of ways. In my subjective interpretation, is belonging is basically the feeling or of to, I guess, belong to some group of to some culture group. I guess in this context, I would say, in this specific context, uh, Yeah, I think it's I would say it's a very interpret based is what I would say for this.
But
Interpret.
how do you see it? Like, do you? I know you have a very logical way of thinking, right? So
Hmm.
you like to think of definitions, but a lot of the times, as you said right now, definitions can have different words can have different definitions in different people's eyes. So belonging to you, if I understand correctly, is cultural belonging. So you belong to a certain culture. Is that correct? Is that what you meant to
Yes,
say?
I would say belonging, it's like the feeling of being accepted or connected or included in a particular society or culture. So
Mm-hmm.
I would say belonging is that feeling, that the human feeling that most, if not all of us human have, of wanting to be part of something, wanting to be part of a culture, wanting to be part of a society. That's what I believe is belonging.
Okay.
But
And
now
mhm.
to oh
No, please go on, go
now
on.
that yeah, now that you like traveled and live in different countries,
Hmm.
you know, does that still stand? Because you know, bear in mind that you might because you know you travel young, yeah. I mean, quite a young age, you know, not young, but you know, a young adult, you know. So, in which culture do you think like you would belong with? Or do you think it's possible to belong in different cultures, like as a percentage, or do you think you no matter where you are or travel, you will still stay with your original culture?
So, first, my answer was basically a plain old definition of what I see as belonging and not what I feel. Regarding your question, that's also quite a very tough and interesting question. It's I believe that's a question that I was asking since I was aware of the fact that I'm slightly different than others when I grew up as a third culture kid with
Mm.
Vietnamese parents who moved to Czech Republic. Uh, since small, obviously I know I was different, both physically and I guess background wise. But I would say um my understanding of belonging did indeed evolve over time as I matured more. I was more self-aware of such topic. I was also more aware that there are more people like me in similar situation who also asked about these questions. Specifically for me, regarding whether I feel like I belong in one or the other culture or how do I see that, I would say it's kind of, I guess it can be said it's kind of percentage. I would say that okay, so I see that different culture are different in terms of beliefs. Different culture has different values. Let's say uh, psychologically or scientifically, it's said that Eastern culture, like Eastern Asian culture, are more less individualistic, while the Western culture are more individualistic. So I would say these are the difference. And what I see, since my parents are from Eastern culture, but I was born and raised in Western culture, I have values from both culture. And that's what I believe most third culture kids experience. They inherit some values from their parents' culture, while they also are assimilated. Some are more assimilated, some are less assimilated to the culture, to the country that they are staying at.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say like it's uh, uh I am not part of one or the other. It's more of a mix of different values from different cultures.
Mm. Okay.
Have you ever um struggled with this sense of belonging?
To make decisions, for example, you know,
Have you ever
because
had
when
the
you make
question
decisions,
of who I really am? Because as I think as humans, it's only natural for us to kind of try to find our own group, um, find where we belong, and usually that belonging is only is one specific group, right? It can be very hard to be part of many different groups, especially when you're younger and when you're growing up, right? uh, and especially when you are in an environment where everybody else seems to not have this problem at all, right? Many kids when I was growing up, for example, personally, they didn't really have these questions. They didn't have these struggles where they need to ask themselves where they belong because they just belonged where they were born, right? So, you coming from a similar place, did you have these struggles? When did you realize that you were one of the people who had these struggles, unlike many any a lot of other people?
So I know a lot of people that are third culture kid, similar background, that are struggling with that. They questions, they have identity crisis, they don't know what they belong to. I am fortunate, I would say, and very lucky that I did not have that situation, mainly because my parents were very supportive and they didn't really force me their Eastern culture. In fact, they were very open for me to explore the Western culture and be very assimilated to the Western, specifically the Czech culture, for example. In fact, I also had a Czech nanny, so all I was very, I would say, assimilated and integrated to the Western culture, and my
Mm-hmm.
parents were not really against or trying to force me to not, they pick up on so many Western culture. My parents were. I was very lucky. My parents were very open minded, and they were very supportive in me assimilating to the culture.
Uh, uh,
Furthermore,
okay.
yes,
No, no, go on.
you amazingly just destroyed my thought process. By the way. I
Sorry,
had
sorry
a
about that. Sorry about that.
Oh, yeah, yeah. No, actually, I luckily I wrote some notes,
So
so I
easy way to say
remember.
I hate you.
No, 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 no. I luckily I actually wrote some pointers when you were asking, so I actually know where my thought
What?
process is going. Uh,
Very
Another
nice.
thing I would say is that I, in terms of personality, am an introvert. I'm more of a lone wolf. So even when I was growing up, I did like I knew I was a bit different, and uh, like it didn't really impact me because at the end of the day, my personality was more of a lone wolf, so it didn't really impact me at all. Also, I was very lucky, as I said again, that the people that I interact, the classmates, friends, were very they were very open minded. I was very lucky, I would say, that I was in a very open minded schools.
Hey there, Editor Oscar here. Thanks for listening so far. If you're also unsure of where you belong and have questions or topics you would like us to talk about, give us a follow and use Spotify's Q&A section to suggest topics and improvements. And if you're enjoying the podcast so far, you can support what we do on buymeacoffee.com/owhy, owhy. But remember, do so only if you want to and you have the means. In other news, this is the first part of a very long episode, so stay tuned for the next episode coming out next week as this conversation gets much more heated. All right, thanks a lot. Let's get back into it.
Very open minded. I was very lucky, I would say, that I was in a very open minded schools.
Okay, so I find it very interesting that you bring up a lot of factors that are actually outside of yourself. Um, so you brought up your parents and you brought up the people around you,
Hmm.
but is that really what belonging means to
I think it is actually.
like
It's actually an interesting point of view.
what I'm trying to say is this. Um, I I would say whatever you said about people around me and the parents being supportive and all that. I think I have a similar situation, right?
Hmm.
My parents were never forcing me to have their culture or whatever. I grew up in Czech culture for the first 6 years of my life. Um, so yet I still have these questions and struggles sometimes. A lot of the times. I mean, not now. Like I think now it's gotten better. But I keep having these questions of which is it? You know.
Like which
Uh,
culture you
I
belong
I
mean,
to?
think
what I'm trying to say is that uh, I think that if you don't have these struggles, there are there must be some kind of, let's say, um how would I say this, like an influence of one over the other, or not influence, that you prefer one over the other. Is that the case with you?
That's very interesting. I try to be mainly lately as I'm more matured to be very open-minded and accept both culture. So I don't have a preference. I do have a preference, but I see pros and cons from both cultures. So, as I said, mentioned, both culture are different in terms of, I would say, beliefs and values. Uh, there's like, for example, in the Western culture, the values is more like in terms of individualism, and so on. Eastern culture, they for example, they more emphasize on, uh, I don't know, education, for example, stuff like that. All those small stuff I see pros and cons on both values. In fact, I would say it's one of the strengths as a because I was exposed for both cultures and I see the both values. I can actually I would say I can see the let's say the negatives and the cons of, like, for example, different cultures. Unlike I would say, like, someone who's only exposed to one culture, they might
Mm-hmm.
be less open-minded and they might think that the culture they are in is perfect, for example. I honestly don't see this as an issue, but at the same time, for example, you mentioned that you had those questions, you had the issues. I believe the difference is because we have different personality. I'm more of an introvert and lone wolf. I don't really socialize as much as you, and I don't have the needs to do so. You, for example, go out. You have like a lot of that's significantly more Czech friends than I do. For example, you go out with them more often. You hang out with them, and then you hang out with your international friends, and then so on. I usually mainly have only international friends or people that are I hang out mainly with people that are also in similar situation or they are very open minded, for example. So I have never had such situation where I really question about this.
What do you think, Madrid?
I was thinking about when you mention your friends, parents, school, the environments,
Hmm.
is that part of your culture as well? And that made me think a bit because when somebody mentions the word like culture, right, the first thing that pops in my head is music, religions, politics, language, social norms, and all. But what about your environment, the people you surround yourself with, your friends specifically, your parents, the school you go at, your house, not just, not the whole country. I'm talking about your house. And I think those things play a role in your culture. And to me, like your culture is more it's more an how can I describe it? I was trying to like say something really deep. It was going to be so fucking good, dude. But it's more like I don't know, a summary of your like identity or something. And I think that your friends and your parents and your environment does play a role in your culture. To answer, Oscar's question about that. And I think it's something that has been overlooked at when we're talking about culture. It's not just about religion or other people and languages. That's what I was thinking about. That's
Yeah, in terms of influence, do you mean influence like influencing the sense of belonging or influencing belonging itself?
I would say belonging itself.
Yeah, because I see a quite a distinction between belonging and then the sense of belonging. Because I think, if you have parents and friends who support you and that are from different cultures, let's say, no matter what you think or what your values are, and they support you regardless of that, um, that creates a very welcoming and comfortable environment for you to grow in, and it makes you feel like you belong. Or no, no, wrong choice of words. Not feel like you belong, but makes you belong, right? But if you feel or not that you belong is a different question, I think.
You know, to be honest
I'm
with you,
cur-
my view on you know um, on all of this is I feel a very different than your views, guys. For me, I traveled quite a lot in the past few years, yeah. And as Oscar said, he struggled, and I did as well, quite strongly, I would say, because we're talking about Western culture to European culture, that's a huge bloody difference. Like, people can
Eastern
be
European,
seem to
yeah.
be yeah, Eastern European, yeah. People can seem to be a bit, cold, colder than Western, and again, that's not bad. It's just very different. It's like, you know, North and South Pole to me, right?
Mm.
And I struggle a long time trying to figure out, am I don't know, Czech? Am I Estonian? Am I Lithuanian? Am I Canadian? What the hell am I? And at one point, I kind of just give up, and I instead created my own culture. And I know that sounds really weird to say, but is as Tony said, with the percentage, I wouldn't see it as a percentage. I would more see it as a cluster of everything that I've learned, and I just go with the flow. And I don't try to figure out who do I belong with. I stopped that a long time ago, to be honest with you. Struggling, and it is a struggle for, I would say, a lot of people to actually um, find your group. And that doesn't go. It goes back, when I was talking about friends and parents and all that. It doesn't go just, you're trying to belong in a culture. You also try to belong in a social group and whatsoever. And I stopped doing that at one point, and I just try to focus on discovering myself, because that's the only person that you're dealing it with, every single day of your life. There's not a time that you're not with yourself.
But
And yeah,
that 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 directly goes to what 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 I was trying to say before, which was that belonging does not come from other people. Belonging comes from you. Because
yeah,
I think when we were younger, we we are immature and we try to, form groups, and we
mm,
try to go and, try to be part of a bigger community or a bigger group, that we can feel belonging, that we can feel like we belong to them. But I think that only means belonging in terms of belonging like itself, but it doesn't give you the sense of belonging. The sense of belonging comes from yourself, from discovering yourself, and from really belonging in terms of you as a human on this planet and not you in some group. I think I
but
think that's the difference.
but if you belong in some group, doesn't it reinforce your belief that you belong to something? Because that's what how I see it. Because again, I see belonging as the feeling of being part of a group, or a society or a culture. It's not really something that you can. That it's the feeling basically from what we feel like. So I see that if we would be quote unquote belong in, for example, the popular kids, or we belong to the Czech culture or something like that, uh, we would then get the feeling that we belong somewhere, and that's what I see it as the belonging,
Okay,
that
but
uh,
feeling.
but take this, right. Just give me 1 second before I forget this,
Yeah,
Merrick.
yeah, yeah. Go ahead, go ahead. Yeah,
But
no, go ahead, go ahead.
imagine like what Merrick just said, right? You you don't have a group, right? You stop seeking a group, which is most of the case, right? For a lot of people, when they grow up, when you grow older, you don't really have that urge to be part of a group anymore. A lot of people, they lose contact with communities and groups, and the more individualistic we become as humans, and society, the more this will be prevalent in the future. But take that you are not part of any bigger group, right? Yet you still feel belonging because you create your own, as Medrick said. You create your own by accepting what you are, by accepting your own sense of belonging as a human, and not to some group. It's not it doesn't take into account anybody else. It takes into account yourself and how you feel and how you think about belonging. What does belonging mean to you? So, right, the question that I asked you originally. So
Mm,
like I understand your perspective, right? Like belonging, it comes from other, comes from actually belonging in another group.
regarding that you don't belong to any group, I don't think that's possible unless you really are cut off with no one. You don't interact with any single
Like
human
living
being
like in a
because
cave or something.
yes, because like if for example we kind of belong to like a small group of friends. We are like close group of friends. We technically go and so on. We that shared like similar situation that we met in high schools and so on. It's like we belong to what how I see is we all belong to like different, let's say, quote unquote groups of different types. It can be a friend group, it can be social group, it can be culture group. There's like all these group that's we belong to,
Hmm.
and I believe that's how we define it. That's how we are. That's everyone is in some kind of groups.
But then,
Uh,
answer this question, right?
mhm.
You belong to groups when you were in high school, or maybe not you specifically because you never asked these questions. But I struggle a lot with belonging, and even when I did struggle, I was still part of groups. I was part of. I had friends. It's not
Mhm.
like I was some weird person, recluse from society and living in the forest or something. I had friends, I had family who supported me. Um, I was part of many different groups, yet I still felt like I didn't belong. Why was that?
That's very That's very interesting. I That's something that I didn't ever I don't think I have experienced. So then I would have to ask you, can you elaborate on what exactly were you struggling in? So like you were in all this group, yet you felt like you didn't belong anywhere. Like can you elaborate on that, and maybe we can see the difference, for example.
um, yeah. Also, thank you for sitting with me, Mr. Therapist. I really needed this. Uh, I,
It's quite interesting
I,
because like we have like
yeah.
a similar background, so that's why, but we have a different experience. So I want to compare our experience and maybe get to the bottom of this.
I think I really started to struggle a lot when I was given the opportunity to kind of to more deeply understand and observe another culture. So I think when I was 17 or 16 actually, I was until I was 16 I was in a very like Czech mindset. I had very Czech views on the world, and I was very like in like this local kind of universe, right? My whole world was just this city, this district, my school, whatever. But when I was 16, I was given the opportunity to go to China for like a cultural exchange kind of a thing, and I went there for I think a month, and I think it was really I hated it. I didn't want to go at first. Like I was kicking and yelling. Um, but in the end, I did go, and it was life changing. I have to say now, because if I did not go there, I wouldn't I wouldn't have struggled with my sense of belonging and what I actually want to do in life. Like where do I actually belong in this world? Where do I want to take my life to? Um, and I think it's mainly because I was exposed to a different way of life, a radically different way of life, and to people who had such different aspirations than what I had. I saw how small I was thinking. It's I don't say it in a bad way, right? I don't
Mm.
mean this in any like bad way or like, oh my god, like don't think small or whatever. You know, you do you. But for me personally, this was a huge change because I started to think, let's say, bigger, or I started to think more outside of the box because I was exposed to all of these different people and all of this like different group, let's say, different culture. So I think that was the main reason why I started to really struggle because suddenly, you have your way of life and suddenly somebody comes in, crashes your door, comes into your house, robs half of your house, and then puts something else in there. It kind of feels like that. And then what do you do now?
I see. Okay. I believe I see the difference, even though seemingly our background are very similar. I would say I have identified few differences. So even though both our parents are from Eastern Asian culture, they both moved to Czech Republic. We were born and raised in Czech Republic, in fact, in the same city. We both, however, the difference is you were extremely way more assimilated into the Czech culture than I was. You were, I believe your kindergarten and some primary school. You were in the Czech primary school for a while, right? Before
Yeah, yeah.
a bit. So that's I would say is the huge difference. Even though I was very exposed to Czech culture, was not as assimilated as you. I wasn't like super like fully Czech local kind of Czech mindset. I still kept in mind that I was kind of more in terms of international. So I actually went to English orientated kindergarten. In my primary school, I was in an international school before I switched to a Czech school.
Mm,
So I was not as assimilated as you into the Czech culture. And most of my friend groups at that time, and even now, it's more people that are in similar situation. They are third culture kids. I was not as assimilated as you into the Czech culture. So I believe because of you are so assimilated into the Czech culture, you identify as like fully very you like really were close to the Czech culture, and then when you see radically different way of life, you had those struggle while I didn't because I did also like went to Vietnam and to see the culture, but I didn't have that much impact. I always knew I knew what to expect. I always knew that uh ethnically I'm Vietnamese, but nationality and I was born and raised in Czech, and had both culture values. So I
mm,
guess I handled more in a way that I didn't go for full on assimilation and kind of pick one culture. I was always like on the fence of like between two, and I didn't really go for one or the other.
yeah. I
So,
guess I guess there might be some truth to this because yeah, I think I went from 100% this to 100% that, and then that really messed up with
mm,
messed me up a bit. But then take Medric's case, right? He he's Canadian. Also, correct me if I'm wrong,
mm.
but you're Canadian, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah. No,
Cool.
so
yeah.
Nice.
so he's Canadian, and then when he is, how old are you? Like 15, 14 or something?
I was 16 when I moved.
16. When he's 16, he moves to a different country, right? So that so he's basically 100% Canadian or French Canadian, or let's say 50% French Canadian, 50% Canadian. I don't know. And then he comes to a different country. So would that be your case, or would that be my case? Would that be the case where you go from 100% to another 100%, or would that be more? you are kind of in the middle already, and then you go to another country, so it doesn't have such a big impact on you. But obviously, it did, right, Menrick?
It did, like, it had a huge impact because of the differences and all. But actually, I had when you guys were talking, I had like different point of view that came up, you know. And
Mhm.
I think we're trying to define belonging as something not constant, but something like a brick, you know, like I'm 50% Czech and I'm 50% that and I'm 50, you know, and I think and like the thing is that I'm like this, I'm made this way. Let's just say I stayed in Canada, and let's just say, right? Um, um, back then I would say I'm 100% Canadian, but the thing is that that's back then, you know, and I think that a sense of belonging changes every single day no matter what you do, you know, you could go in the streets and you could meet new people. And by meeting those new people, your sense of belonging changes based on those people you met. No matter what their culture is, that doesn't matter. It brings a lot of virtues, different virtues, but that doesn't matter because they have a different mindset, they have different type of music that they like, they're different, you know, and so it depends on basically, a sense of belonging is not something constant. It's something that changes every single day of your life. That makes more sense. You know?
Yeah, yeah.
And I think the thing that actually belonging, I would say, and I know I shouldn't, use the word absolute, but I think it absolutely depends on the people you meet. Because let's just say I stay in Canada. Let's say I didn't travel. Let's just say, okay. And I go in a bar and I meet, I don't know, people from Spain. I'll take a bit of their virtues. You know, I get along, they become my friend. I take their virtues with me, right? Now I meet some English people, I'll take their virtues. I'll meet some French, I'll meet, so basically my sense of belonging depends on others' virtues, other people's virtues, I would say. And not just obviously the environment and all that. Yes, it plays a role in that, but people has, a huge effect on you. If that makes more sense.
Oh no,
And
I
again,
not.
in traveling, yeah, as you guys experience, traveling, it changes your sense of belonging because it's a shock. Yeah, it's a culture shock, and we all have experienced it. Yeah, it's a pain in the ass sometimes, you know, but it's it's just the only thing that changed from me staying to Canada and meeting people in a bar and me going from Canada to Czech Republic is the amount of people I met at once, right? We're talking about moving to Canada from Canada to Czech Republic within a few days. I just met a few thousand, like not met personally, but met, in the street and all that, a few hundred people. I don't know, compared to me meeting, I don't know, five people in a bar in Canada, you know. So it's your sense of belonging did change, but we're just talking about the dosage that might have been a bit stronger, and that's why we go in shock sometimes, from that. But no joke, no matter where you go, whether it's a block away from your house, your sense of belonging will change depending on the people that you meet. At least that's what I came up with while you guys were talking, because I was
No,
thinking about everything you were saying.
I would say I definitely agree with you that like people we hang out with have a very significant impact on like both the culture value we'll have and our feeling of belonging. I would say like since we are more, I consider ourselves more in terms of like third culture kids or people that has like more exposed into multiple culture, more like let's say quote unquote international. It's like I believe we don't have like we since we are exposed so many culture, we have like let's say a mishmash of bunch of culture values from different culture, and that's basically what we that's
But
makes what we are basically.
But yeah, so there's that, there's the people as you just said, but also I think another big point of view is time. Yeah. So let's say you meet international people, right?
Hmm.
You feel a sense of belonging with them, and that's great. But 5 years later, you're not with them anymore, and you move on to other people. So your sense of belonging did not stay constant, as I said. It shifted to another place, right? So I think 2 points to taking it is probably more, but at least that's what I came up with. I think the 2 points that really affects the sense of belonging is people and time, I would say. I don't know if you guys
Uh,
agree with that.
I agree with people, time, but I also would add that also environment
Oh yeah, that
would
one too. That
also
one too. Yeah. I
uh,
agree. Yeah.
influence. But yeah, definitely, I would fully agree with that.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed the first part of this episode. You can catch the next part next week once it drops. And for you to have some fun before the next episode comes out, we also included some bloopers. So please enjoy.
Also very good. Thanks for having me again.
It's like a proper like the one you see like in movies or something. Okay, I mean, sorry, it just made me laugh.
Okay, let's just sit here in silence.
Why is it so? No, we gotta restart, please.
I don't have any.
Why you guys didn't say anything? You guys
Okay,
are
okay,
making it
okay,
awkward.
Sorry.
Please, let's restart. Let's You did sound like 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 the classic thing, like a Jim Carrey,
Okay, so
something.
so we start.
Made it
So we
real.
start
I
again.
mean, it
Okay.
was real.
All right. Welcome
Okay.
back, everyone. I'm Oscar Wang, and today with me we have. Dude, can you, dude, turn off your camera.
Okay, we cannot, guys. Yeah, we gotta mute. Okay. Let's mute Tony. Let's mute.
Okay,
Let them
okay.
free.
Dude, it doesn't matter if you're mute or not. It's your face. Okay.
I'm gonna remove my face. I gotta remove my
Okay,
face.
that's actually more awkward. All right, so.
Yeah, it's okay.
All right, guys, come on. We're 100% focused, right? This is this is our.
Okay, focus. Tony choked. Bad
Okay.
everywhere.
All right, welcome back, everyone. I'm Oscar Wang, and today we have fucking.
Go on.
Where did Tony go?
Tony falls. Where did he go? Look at Charizard is so.
Yeah, he's so
I'm
disappointed.
turning off your cam, guys.
Okay.
Yeah, but go on.
Okay.
Guys,
okay.
this is attempt number 4. Yeah. Actually, no.
It's
Number 4 is
5,
actually not a
sure.
lucky number. So number 5. Let's do number 5. Okay. Attempt number 5.
Yeah.
All right. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Oscar Wang, and today I'm not gonna laugh because Medrick is looking at me with a stupid face. Fuck, we have to do it again. Okay. I'm just gonna look. Okay, I'm just gonna look away. I'm not gonna look at him.
Yeah, look away from the truth. Yes.
All right.
What?
All right. Welcome back, everybody. He's gonna put his Dude, can you stop?
Alright, go on, boys. Come on. You got this. Come on. No, come on. Let's